Hi guys, my name is Maria Loram. I make functional art and collectible design, and in this YouTube channel I share my life as an artist, updates, glazes, clay, business, and everything in between. In the last video I shared a story about a business retreat that I went to that was part of my month-and-a-half long trip to Portugal and Lebanon, and in this video I wanted to finally show you how my residency went, how it looked like, everything that I've been going through, whatever I've been making, and just show you guys around because it was super fun. I did a lot of new stuff, very useful for the artists who want a very nice long vacation in a different foreign country, making art, getting paid for it. First of all, where did I find the residency? I found it on Instagram. For some reason, I was just scrolling through open calls, and you know, when you click the post and then you start scrolling down, you start seeing posts that are like this post. And I really wanted to go to Portugal for quite some time because I wanted to explore it as a potential relocation place. You know, with everything that's going on in LA and in the United States, it kind of feels like the right time to try a different country. And Portugal, in a way, feels like California to me. Both the weather, the ocean, the people, everything. And so I thought, I'm gonna go to a residency and then I'm gonna explore the coastline, and then I'm gonna see if I like it or not. The residency showed up on my Instagram back in February when there was a lot of fires and the air was really bad. I applied, I wrote a really good proposal. Residency organizers are called Oficinas do Convento. It's an organization, cultural group, I don't know what to call them, a cultural organization based in Montemora Nova, a little town an hour away from Lisbon. I think they apply for grants and someone gives them grants that they then give out to artists. The residency was really nice because everything was included. They covered food, they covered materials, the stay was free, in a dormitory, which I'll talk about later. And more than that, they're also paying 1,200 euros of support of an artist because it takes a whole month. We have to fulfill a whole project. We're missing our work, our life. It's nice to be paid for sure. I think the way I got in was probably because my proposal was really good. It fit the values of the organization. It fit the values of the curator and of the people who work there. It was really fun. Let's walk around the residency first, and then I'm gonna talk about my project. I finally arrived. I am at the residency, and I really want to show you guys around. This is the dorm where we're gonna live. It's a very big old building that used to be a monastery, Convento. I guess that's a monastery. So somewhere here, long time ago, monks slept, and now I'm sleeping. So this is my bed, and then there's like about 10 more beds. Another artist from the residency is going to sleep over there in the corner. This is the rest of the dorm. The ceilings are super short. They said that we're gonna be here alone, but sometimes over the weekends some other people might come. As you can see, I already made my bed. This is where I'm going to be sleeping, and I'm going to show you where I'm going to be creating. The only problem with the dorm was that I needed to work at night because I still work as a tutor and I work Californian time. So I work from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. and May was the finals time for my kids, my students. So I had to work from 11 p.m. until around 3 a.m. Portuguese time. That was an issue. Sometimes there would be one person in addition to me. Sometimes there would be 5 people. But when I go to bed at 3 a.m. and people go to bed at like 10 or 11, they wake up at 6, they wake up at 7, they wake me up. And basically, I'm just like totally sleep deprived for a whole month as a result. I feel like I'm still sleep deprived. I'm really hoping that within a couple of weeks, I'll be recovered. And then I'm off to another trip, another workshop, and then all over again. So hopefully I'm not gonna die too early because of how sleep deprived I am. But that was the main issue. So let's explore the space. I just got here, so I was introduced to the little space. So it's a yard. Here is a laser printer. The artist that's currently working on a project with me is going to print some engravings on top of the bricks, and this is where he's going to be doing that. Lots of fun stuff. A whole collection of really weird instruments. And this is a metal workshop. This is my biggest aspiration. I'm really hoping to at least cut the metal, or maybe at least use the scrap metal that I can find here in my project, but we will see. There's definitely lots of piles of cool metal around, but some of the machines look very scary. Just look at that drill. Ooh. And of course, what's really fun is, because it's Europe, look at those amazing ceilings. And let's go to the top. Here is the rooftop. Again, lots of scrap metal that I might be potentially using. And here is the coolest part of the monastery that survived. You can see Portugal from up top, and this very big ancient monastery. I don't know why I like this corner so much, but I really like it. Lots of crap. I think it's probably my childhood and my upbringing that makes me like this kind of things. Just lots of things I can build with. Like, I'm very curious what this is. It feels weird. I don't even know what it's made of. If you know what this is, let me know. I'm curious. Shit, I think it's raining. Right, and a very important part that I just cannot not throw is the cemetery. I asked, it's not only monks, it's also civil people, but probably 17th century people, possibly earlier. So lots of ghosts. This is one of the projects of one of the former residents. She made a kiln that acts as a musical instrument. So whenever steam is coming out, the little clay tubes over there, they just play. So they're like tiny flutes. This is one of the studios where we're allowed to work. This studio specifically is all about ceramics. This is where I'm going to be making my fake bricks. The space is very cute. I think they're very into testing different materials as well as classes. When I just arrived, I saw a raku class. It was just a fire outside. That was really fun. And then next week, there's going to be a very tiny wood firing, which will take 3 days, 1 day loading, 1 day firing, and then 1 day unloading. All in all, it's a pretty well-equipped studio. They have a very big kiln, and then they have another kiln, and then another kiln. There's all the different kinds of molds. I'm especially fond of these little cups that the local artists make. I think this mold is perfect. It's like a very tiny cup. They make it with different designs, different glazes, finishes, but this really inspired me to make my own mold. But unfortunately, a plaster mold takes about a week or 2 to dry. So I might make it, but I might not make what I wanted to make. So I have to work with slabs, but that's okay. And here's a quick overview of the studio. You can see there's another kiln, and then this is going to be my workplace right here. Here's a slab roller. Actually, that's great because I didn't know there's a slab roller, so that's perfect. And then as we keep going, there is even more space in the studio. And let's go all the way over there because I see some really cool textiles. And let's take a look at the local clays. Someone threw this little vases. That's cute. I obviously felt drawn to this because that's textiles and I love textiles. The place has a lot of different local clays that look like bricks. Some of it is terracotta and some of it is high fire. For example, this is high fire brick clay. It's called vermelho. They pronounce it in a very interesting way that I can never repeat. But this, for example, is a vermelho clay. This is fired to 1000 and this is fired to 1200 degrees Celsius. The studio also carries just regular porcelain and faience, as they call it, which are pretty beautiful white high fire clays. I am planning to make my project out of this clay just because I really love the groggy texture of it. I love that it's high fired. I like that I can probably make something really beautiful and just really cool color. I was thinking about really white, pristine porcelain, but honestly, who am I kidding? This is a lot closer to me and to my art and to the clay that I like. As you can see, there's a lot of grog. Also, one note, I love their textiles and I'll show you how they make them. And I love that they're little letters, and they're just so perfectly aligned. The horizontal line here that you see measures shrinkage. They measure the lengths first, and then they fire the test style, and they measure the lengths again, and they can calculate the percent of shrinkage. This is a very good way, and I think the style of line that looks like a scale is a very typical thing to do. And I just wanted to show you how beautifully organized all the test tiles are. So those are all the different minerals and materials that you can add to clay that are stored on top in those tiny little plastic containers that I think are perfect. And there's the information about various clays. So this is the main clay that we work with, so clay for the brick. And this is the raw version of the clay. This is the clay that's fired to 900 degrees. And this is how plastic it is, aka not plastic at all, which is why they add a lot of grog into it. And then this is how much it contracts or shrinks. 800 degrees Celsius, 1000. And at 1200 something magical happens. The brick just begins to boil and it looks completely different. Pretty crazy. So just totally melted, which is really fun. And then they have lots of other materials and other clays. All of them are displayed like this. Some of them are low fired because, and we can tell, because if you look at this little column at 1200 degrees Celsius, you'll see that this one's totally dead. This one is also absolutely decomposed. This one melts quite a bit at 1200. This one melts even more, but still is actually really beautiful. Versus like, look at the color, just 200 degrees below. So very low fired clay. This is, I think, is probably the only high fired clay that they have right here that's actually high fired. And this bottom one, again, seems to be very melty. I love how many different tests they have and how much information those test tiles give. You know my love of test tiles. I don't know why I love test tiles so much. I think this is the paradise of test tiles. Everything is just so perfect. And I learned the secret of how they make it. They just cut it with a specific cutter. Here are the little cutters that they use. I don't know, I think it's perfect. I don't know how they made it, but it's metal and it's like heavy metal. It's a lot better than a regular cookie cutter. And then it also has little handles. I can press the cutter into clay and then lift it up easily without like trying to pull it. And the same thing here. Those little handles I think are very convenient. It's Sunday today and I just thought that I'd come here and record and also just work with clay while there's no one. I love working on my own in the studio when no one is watching. And then I'll be very excited to tell you more about my project. So far, what I'm imagining, and we'll see at the end of the video and at the end of the residency how it's actually gonna look like. I imagine it to be a gigantic wall out of metal that I weld with actually several kinds of walls. So the walls are going to imitate the local ruins, the walls that are out there on the street where half of the bricks are falling off. The white lime wash or plaster is also falling off. Maybe some plants are sticking out. We're at the little brick museum, basically a brick studio. Let's call it a brick studio. I just don't know the right word for this. But it's a mini factory, very tiny place where people used to make bricks. The place was closed since mid 20th century, but then it was operating before. I actually don't know when exactly it started, I should ask. But then, yeah, it reopened and now I think they make commercial bricks, but they also teach different workshops. For example, this is a soda kiln. They perform salt and soda firings in this kiln. I suspect that's the year when it was built. If you come closer, what's really cool is you can totally see all the leftovers of soda and salt on the walls. See how like glazed the walls are. And here we go, we're entering the brick place where everyone is making bricks. Bricks could be different sizes, they could be small, they could be bigger, it all depends on the mold, and I'm gonna show you how the place looks like and how the molds look like as well. Let's go. Well, the brick place is closed, which is actually not great because all my experiments are there and I thought I would maybe make something, but there might be some people who live here, so I'll go check if they have the key. But this is the place that's separate from the brick. Well, it's kind of the same, They make bricks here as well, but a different kind. I still don't know the name of this technique. I feel like it sounds something like rare earth technique, rared earth, maybe reared earth. I should Google because I feel like I should know. The idea of the technique is that they take the mold and then mix wild clay, rocks, sand, and water in different proportions and then stamp it like this until it's very well packed, and as a result they create a brick from which they can build houses. So this is how the mold looks like. It's assembled into cubes, and I suspect there's several test tiles that people made to test which proportions are gonna work best and which proportions are too wet or maybe not enough sand or not enough gravel. And then there's all kinds of different ingredients here, from sand to gravel to wild clay. All of them are mixed in specific proportions. That is the hardest part to get. And then, as a result, they're getting this kind of bricks. The bricks that I see are pretty small. I'll try this one. From what I understand, it also depends on a different kind of mold, but it is super heavy to hold. So I'm gonna place it back. But it is pretty sturdy. I think the most surprising thing for me is that they're not fired, and that makes it a very sustainable way of building a house. So these are some of the examples of the mixtures that they put outside to dry and to see what happens to them when they are exposed to the air, to the water, and to all the elements. We are in a brick place, and I think it's very atmospheric. It has really cool vibes. When I entered it, I was like, yeah, I think that's where I want to be making things. It's a little bit industrial, but what I really like the most is that the person who works here, Mufasa, she organizes everything so well, and everything is in the right place. Everything is very ordered. The floors are really clean. It's just a joy to be here. Here we can see two big kilns. I think this is where the bricks are fired. Actually, there's more kilns over there. Let's take a look. Here we go. Those are the kilns for the bricks. This makes a lot more sense. They're big. They can fit a lot. I think they tend to make quite a lot of bricks, especially if it's the season with sun when the bricks can dry, because the brick is actually just a big chunk of clay. It's a big chunk of this clay mixed with water and sand. So they just take clay, they clear the clay from debris and from little rocks, and then mix it with water, add a lot of sand, because making a brick takes a lot of water, and for it not to shrink too much and not to crack, they need to add a lot of sand as well. I think this specific clay is something that they're recycling right now from the bricks that just didn't work and weren't fired, and they're trying to reuse all the materials, including dust that's left over from the bricks and everything else. I love this little hidden room. This is the room where they store a bunch of different tools, and the most important thing, they store molds. Those are the molds that this place uses to make bricks, and there are all kinds of different molds. There's molds that are very small, that are for more, I would say, tiles and creative projects, and then there's more standard molds that actually make gigantic bricks. So here's where all the molds are stored. Those are old molds, from what I understand. They don't use them anymore, and those are just different kinds. And this is where they make the bricks. I'm gonna show you how they make the bricks. I'm gonna make small test tiles and add a lot of different aggregates, because that's part of my project, is to add rocks, organics, sand. This is the boards that they use where they put the mold and make the brick, and this is a lot of shelves where the bricks are drying. It was really such an amazing growth experience. I've tried so many different things to fulfill my project with all of those different places that you've seen at the residency. It's an old monastery, it has welding, it has ceramic store, ceramic place, ceramic workshop, brick workshop. There's so many different things that I really enjoyed, and I felt like I really did not use it to the fullest, unfortunately, but I used it to the most of my ability at the time, especially given the fact that I went to a business retreat, as you probably watched in this video, and then I also needed to prepare for glaze workshop in Lebanon. I had to work. Basically, there was so much going on that despite the fact that I had a feeling of not fully committing to this residency, not putting my best effort, I still did the best I could. And I still explored so many new things, so many new possibilities that I counted as a total success. This ceramic residency was about the brick, and there were only 2 artists who got accepted, me and Alberto. Alberto had an amazing project. It was so cool. I'm gonna show you some parts of it right here. He made a huge wall of tiles. Then what he did, I mean, it's so hard to describe. I feel like he needed to present it for this video.
Um pouco atrás, eu tenho uma pesquisa de usar cerâmica como meio de armazenamento de dados, de armazenamento de memória no contexto digital.
But basically what he did, he engraved using laser. First of all, the engraving itself, the big piece of colonizers coming and celebrating. But then he also engraved different letters with events that were brutal and showed how bad colonization was. So kind of the events that he researched and he wanted us to know about. And then he built a machine that was scanning those letters and then Googling those letters and then displaying it on a monitor, showing like all the different information about those events. Technologically very difficult and intense project. And I really respected him for the fact that he did that much of work. I, on the other hand, felt exhausted from working and then also trying all those new things. But I feel like my project was definitely outside of my comfort zone for me. And I feel like that's already good enough. Like really, I feel like I succeeded. Hi everyone, my name is Maria. I initially came here inspired by a single plant breaking the bricks. You know, when you walk around and you see the bricks are broken and there's just like one plant and the whole building begins to collapse. And I was really impressed by that because that for me signified the force of nature. And nature for me is the opposition of the system, of the structures, of something that's very rigid and hard to break. And when I came here and I started walking around the city, I saw that there's a lot of really beautiful walls that are broken right in the right way that I liked. And I thought I would explore what breaks the brick and why the brick breaks and what happens when the brick breaks. And I started by my typical process, by something that I do a lot in my practice, and that's very systematically examining what happens. I took a traditional practice of making the brick and I added different aggregates, and aggregates could be various materials that do not belong to ceramics. It could be grass, it could be sand, it could be some dirt from the ground, it could be cement. I added 18 different aggregates to my bricks and just like saw what happens to them. I fired them and saw at which point the brick stops becoming a brick, at which point the nature or foreign elements stop the brick from performing its function. Unfortunately, we couldn't make full bricks because of the weather, but I made kind of tiny tiles/bricks through which I explored the results. So it was more familiar to me because I am really into testing. I'm testing glazes, I'm testing aggregates, I'm making a lot of test tiles. And so that was something that I felt like was a little bit closer to my line of work. How much disruption a brick could take before it could no longer function? How much interference can a system withstand before it stops doing its job? And we could see how different parts of nature, parts of the environment destroy the brick in a very systematic way. So you could see, like, if I put 10%, 20, 30, 40%, what happens? But then I started thinking a little bit deeper, and I thought that I would try to build my own wall, just like the walls here in the town. And this is what I came up with as a result. I really wanted to start making wall installations, and that was one of the very first wall installations I've ever made. I had to create this gigantic metal structure by learning how to weld. So I learned how to weld, and I feel like I did it very successfully. I had so much fun, and I feel such a badass. I think in general, I really enjoyed welding. I think it was pretty easy to do. I did not do like the best job ever. I'm not gonna win a welding competition, but my welding did its job and it held the structure quite well. It was a really nice net on top of which I put different stuff. So my installation had two parts. One of them was on the wall, the other one was on the ground. For my wall installation, I used already crushed bricks that were also pre-broken. I connected them together using paper clay that I made out of recycled paper and recycled clay that's from the broken brick. And then I connected them together. I covered it with clay and with some cardboard and lime wash to imitate those walls that I saw all over and to imitate this broken wall which a single plant can break. And then for the second part of the project, I made broken bricks that were shaped by my hand that also had different aggregates in them, in particular pieces of broken brick. Those bricks were hollow. They're kind of like inside out bricks, not real bricks, but already kind of broken bricks. And then out of those bricks, I built a wall, either already broken or that was in the process of being built. So it's a good question. It's like, am I building the wall out of broken brick or am I breaking the wall that's been pre-built before? What was really interesting to me is that while I was making it, I actually realized what I'm doing. Because before I was like, well, nature versus humans, so there's some kind of idea that I don't even know how to explain. And then while I was making it, I really had to think through the whole structure. First of all, I needed to weld the metal structure. Second, I needed to read the whole book about paper clay and to figure out how to connect those broken bricks together and attach them to the wall piece, to the metal structure. Then I had to figure out how I'm gonna be imitating the slime wash wall that is also half broken. So, there's a lot of struggle. And then I realized that this is really difficult to build a wall, that the main function of a brick is to build a wall. And it takes effort to build a wall, especially if those bricks are broken. It takes effort to fulfill this function of a brick. Bricks are foundations of the walls. And walls are the basis for the structures, for the systems. They're meant to divide, to protect, to contain. But what happens when we no longer need protection? What's left when the whole structure falls? And what happens when it falls? What's beyond the function of a brick was the question I was asking. What's there? Nevertheless, it breaks. Nothing we build, whether physically or emotionally, lasts forever, and that was a symbol of this for me, a symbol of destruction, a symbol of the whole universe going towards entropy, of this irresistible pull towards mess and death. The metal net, the one that gives the structure, kind of feels very symbolic to me too, because I feel like that's a much stronger industrial solid piece that holds something that's already broken, something that's temporary and not created to last. I feel like with me exploring what's beyond the function of a brick, I was also exploring what's beyond the function in general. What happens when an artist creates something non-functional? Is there a function? Is there a meaning behind it? People ask me, oh, what are you going to do with it afterwards? And I'm like, well, it doesn't have a function. I'm not going to do anything with it. And for me, this stepping outside of my comfort zone, stepping outside of the functionality of an object, for me, that was a huge decision and a huge and difficult thing to do, because my whole life I'm making vases, I'm making something that could be used. I'm very environmentally friendly, environmentally conscious. I'm recycling everything. But then there is a question of what happens if I break those rules, if I go outside, if I step into a zone of a concept instead of a function? How do I feel there? And that was the challenging part for sure, is to create something that I just left at the residency and will never see again. I spoke to many people during this trip. Surprisingly, there was one Lebanese guy. There was an interesting coincidence to the fact that I found the only Lebanese guy in Portugal. in this tiny, tiny village, and that I went to Lebanon just a few days later to discover other types of people, people who lived in a different way. And this Lebanese guy, he lived in the forest. He quit his job. He lived off-grid. He said that he was stepping out of the system and that he would highly recommend stepping out of the system for everyone else. But I felt like he was running away from something, probably from himself. He was running away from those systems, from those structures, by building a wall that would protect him from those structures. It felt like it wasn't really the right way, and I'm not quite sure if it made him happy. Some people feel like living outside of system is leaving the system behind, leaving the money, abandoning the life as is, all the schedules and commitments and everything. Other people just make a lot of money and they step outside of the system. My question is, why we're trying to run away from the system, and what is the right way of stepping outside of the system? What does it mean to live outside of the system? And where this real system is, where those bricks exist that build the walls? My answer is that they're inside, that they're internal. The problem is when we break them, then there's nothing left, and that nothing is quite scary to live with. And what's left behind, we're gonna see when it breaks until the very end. And that's it. Thanks so much for watching this video. I'm really happy to share my life with you. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.